Good morning. Thank you all for attending our press conference. My name is Sergio Diaz, and I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Riverside. We asked the members of the media to attend today to share with you the results of a 6-month investigation that's been going on that involves a number of agencies, but principally the Riverside Police Department, the State of California Department of Justice Special Operations Unit, and the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. This is a major operation that has targeted a street gang in the city of Riverside, which was responsible for a number of violent crimes over the last 2 years. These crimes include shootings, several murders, and a large number of defendants. You'll get more information, more details in a few minutes from Lieutenant Charles Payne, who's in charge of our detective unit at the Riverside Police Department. He will give you some particular details about the numbers of arrests, the numbers of firearms seized during this investigation. You will also hear from California Attorney General Javier Becerra. General Becerra will talk about the importance and the cooperation that we received from the California Department of Justice. You'll also hear from District Attorney Mike Estrin, Riverside County District Attorney, about the charges to be filed. Afterwards, we will all be available for one-on-one interviews as you deem fit. Several of us speak Spanish, and will be available for the Spanish media to do one-on-ones about the investigation. I would just close by noting the importance of this investigation. There are many components, including violent gang crime, narcotics trafficking, and the control of those gang crimes and that trafficking by organized crime, principally out of the state prison system in California. The importance to us in the city of Riverside is that with the removal of these dangerous criminals from our street, a job which, by the way, is not complete, it's an ongoing mission, but with that, we're able to bring a sense of justice and a sense of peace to neighborhoods in our city that are beset by gang violence. Most importantly to me, we give an opportunity for young people to grow up in a more normal environment, to achieve their fullest potential, and to be children. Hugely important. With that, I'll call up Lieutenant Payne, who's going to give you some details of the investigation.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for coming. This investigation focused on violent activity, gang activity, in the east side neighborhood of Riverside. Since 2016, this small area of the city has experienced 40 instances of reported and verified gang-related violence, including murders, attempted murders, assaults with deadly weapons, carjackings, and robberies. There were over 213 shooting or shots heard calls, as well as 67 calls involving subjects with guns. Without a doubt, a large percentage of these calls were actually calls of gang-related violence that either went unreported, and there were likely others that we just aren't aware of because they weren't reported. Nearly half of the 40 crimes discussed above between August 2017 and September of 2017. In recent months, several high-ranking gang members have been released from custody. As a result, these members have been fighting to retake control of their respective cliques or factions within the gang. That's contributed to the spike in violent crime as well. The power struggle between the leadership of these different factions caused a surge in violent crimes throughout the east side neighborhood of Riverside. The number of shootings, drive-by shootings, assaults, and other violent crimes have drastically increased in the past several months. For example, on January 20th, there was a murder involving 2 different gang clique members. The victim in that shooting was a known gang member who was standing on the front porch of his residence. The suspect, believed to be another member of the same gang, approached the victim from an adjacent alleyway and fired several rounds at that victim. Witnesses told Riverside PD detectives that there had also been a drive-by shooting at the residence the previous night. This investigation spanned several months and resulted in the takedown of many suspected gang members and their associates yesterday. 17 state search warrants and 28 arrest warrants were served or attempted to be served. 1 parole search and 5 probation searches were conducted, all of them related to criminal street gang activity by gang members and or their associates in Riverside, Orange, and San Bernardino counties. This multi-agency takedown concluded with 26 arrests and the seizure of 63 firearms, which are displayed on the table next to us. We're still looking for several additional suspects who have outstanding warrants for their arrest. We also recovered significant quantities of illegal narcotics and evidence items that indicate gang affiliation. Not only were locations within the city of Riverside targeted yesterday, but also in Rialto, Moreno Valley, Garden Grove, Paris, and San Jacinto. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, also known as CDCR, also assisted with searching several associated gang members' cells inside the state prison system. This is a great example of the tenacity of our detectives and the hard work they put in to make sure that the residents of Riverside are able to feel safe in their community. They do not give up. It's also a great example of the teamwork and partnerships we have with other agencies, not just the Department of Justice, but other local law enforcement agencies that contributed time and personnel to make this operation successful and to send a message to those who would victimize our community. Our neighborhoods don't belong to you. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our State Attorney General, Javier Becerra.
Lieutenant Payne, thank you very much. I'd like to begin by first saying that I'm pleased to be here with the Chief, with the men and women of the Riverside Police Department, and with the members of the California Department of Justice's Division of Law Enforcement team. I'm going to mention them in a second, but I just wanted to say that when you do a press conference like this, sometimes it gets a little sterile, what just happened. You can take a look and get a sense of some of what went down yesterday. It was the result of weeks of work and investigative operations. But perhaps the thing that will never quite get communicated is that not a person got hurt in this operation. And you can see that this could have turned into something very different. And so to the men and women who will not be in front of these cameras, if I could just say on behalf of the 40 million people of the state of California, thank you very much for doing this job, for not getting the credit you deserve, and for continuing to do it very silently. But hopefully, as the chief said, making it so that a lot of kids can actually grow up and spend some years being kids before they have to be adults. Chief Diaz and I have had an opportunity to meet on a number of occasions, and I hope we continue to meet on occasions like this, Chief, because it is important to continue this work. We are fortunate that all this good effort will now be handed over to the District Attorney, Mike Hestrin, who will go on and vigorously prosecute a number of these individuals who have been arrested and detained. And I just simply want to take a moment, as I said, to recognize some of the folks in our operation who make some of this work possible, working in partnership with the men and women of Riverside PD. Chris Caligiri, who is here, who is the head of our Bureau of Investigations, is here with us. Louis Lopez, who is one of our special agents in charge. Jim Biscaluz, another special agent in charge. And Scott Hunter, a special agent supervisor, are here on behalf of some of the other men and women of our Bureau of Investigations, the Special Ops unit that does some of this work, and the men and women who are part of the California Department of Justice's efforts to try to work alongside our law enforcement partners locally and at the federal level. I think today's a pretty good day, but we know we got a number of these days still to go, and so I think it's important to communicate that it takes a partnership. You don't get this done by yourself, and when you've got a good partnership going, you can get some good results. And so I think it's important to recognize that we need a few other partners, folks in the community who can help us do a faster job of pursuing some of these folks. If you could come forward, we know that it's tough. We know that you risk sometimes your own personal safety, but it would make the job of the men and women who made this possible a lot easier if we had the cooperation of folks in the neighborhoods to make something like this happen. At the end of the day, the folks who are going to benefit most are the folks who come forward to help us out. And so do it for your kids. Help us make this happen. For us, this started back in May of 2018. Our California Department of Justice Special Ops Unit team joined up with Riverside Police Department to begin an investigation after, as you heard Lieutenant Payne mention, a spate of violent crime was occurring in Riverside, including drive-by shootings and assaults. I think all of us would agree that there's no community that should be plagued by violence and street crime. And yesterday's action, which culminated after weeks of investigation, which targeted criminal street gangs and which will, as I said, be followed by vigorous prosecution, is just one of many critical components of our public safety responsibilities as law enforcement authorities. In Operation Eastbound and Down, as this operation was called, as you heard, 45 people were arrested, 63 firearms seized, including 13 assault weapons. During the course of the investigation, we gathered evidence. All the teams gathered evidence to solve a past gang homicide. Investigators prevented violent crimes, including a pre-planned gang assault and illegal firearms transfers among gang members. Investigators also seized firearms destined for the hands of gang members to be used to facilitate violent crimes. Operation Eastbound and Down is part of a long list of gang takedowns that local, state, and federal law enforcement authorities have been undertaking in California, working together. And certainly at the California Department of Justice, we could talk about not just this operation, but recent operations in Merced County, in Bakersfield, Stockton, in Los Angeles County, Orange County, in the Bay Area, Fresno, to name but a few. These takedowns have targeted members of violent street gangs, human traffickers, and drug cartels. I end as I started by saying thank you to the men and women of our various law enforcement agencies who conducted this investigation, who put themselves on the line, and who made these arrests possible. The California Department of Justice will continue to work hand in hand with the Riverside Police Department, with the District Attorney's Office here in Riverside County, to take back our neighborhoods for our families in Riverside. And with that, I'll turn it over to the District Attorney, Mike Hestrin, for his words.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Hestrin. I'm the Riverside County District Attorney. I want to kind of just give you some thoughts. They're going to echo some of what you've already heard, but Chief Diaz mentioned that in something that I think is very important to realize when you look at the results of this operation and the time that it took to put an operation like this together, the criminal street gangs that we're facing in California in recent years have become increasingly organized. That means that they collaborate and they work with other criminal operations, drug traffickers, cartels that work with the local street gangs. And in response to that, law enforcement, like you're seeing here, has also become increasingly organized and better collaborating. And I think that's been the key to the success of this operation and many others that have been happening around the state, as the Attorney General mentioned. So I want to start on that note by saying thank you to the Attorney General for his leadership and to the men and women of the Department of Justice for all their hard work. I want to thank Chief Diaz, the Riverside Police Department and their gang detectives are incredible, some of the best in the state. And so no single law enforcement agency can pull something like this off. No single law enforcement agency, whether you're talking about a police department or a local DA's office, can do this alone. And so we really value the collaboration and the teamwork that we have in this county. And I actually think that Riverside County, what's remarkable about law enforcement in this county is how much we work together and how much the lines of authority and jurisdiction sort of melt away when the work needs to be done. So I want to thank everybody for that spirit of collaboration and cooperation that made something like this possible. And also, as the Attorney General said, when you look at the guns that were taken off the streets and out of the hands of these violent gang members, it gives you a little bit of a sense of what our police officers that patrol this city and this county, what they face day in and day out. And I want you to think about that for a second and why this is so important that these operations continue to happen and that they're successful. Because just look at those guns and think about the job that the men and women in uniform do to keep us safe. It's an incredible job, and the dangers are, you can't even imagine the dangers that they go through. And so we all have to come together to make sure that we do everything that can be done to get these guns out of the hands of the dangerous criminals. We've got to keep the pressure on these gangs, and that's exactly what an operation like this represents. I want to give you now just the cases filed. So the Riverside District Attorney's Office has been working with the detectives on this case, working closely with them as the cases have come together. And in the days to come, in the weeks to come, we'll be filing these cases in court and vigorously prosecuting them. So far, what we have is 22 individuals that have been charged with crimes, 17 total separate criminal cases. So obviously some of the cases have multiple individuals. They range, the charges range from attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, violent robberies, including 3 armed robberies, and 1 case where the victim suffered great bodily injury during a robbery. And then, of course, many cases of sales and possessions of assault weapons and narcotics. So what I will tell you is we are going to prosecute this vigorously, and we take this seriously, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that what happens in court reflects the work done here and keeps our community safe. Thank you all for being here, and I'll turn it back over to Chief Diaz.
At this time, we would be happy to take any specific questions that any member of the media has. Again, afterwards, we will remain available for one-on-ones. Attorney General Becerra and District Attorney Hestron and I all speak Spanish, so we'll make ourselves available to the Spanish media. No questions? Tell again. I said I'll do it after. Okay, we can do it that way as well. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll remain available and.